Let's look at the times that players yelled at their own teammates for making errors. Trevor Bauer did just that after his future Hall of Fame Diamond mate Joey Votto dropped a throw to first base. Was this a terrible-looking play? For sure, but you just don't do that to a guy who's been in the league for that long and made as many big plays for the Reds as he has. But at least it was understandable that that play was extremely easy, unlike this one that Joe Panik made a throwing error on versus the Yankees. Ross Stripling was the pitcher who gave up what could have easily been deemed an infield hit. Yet, despite the difficulty of this play, Stripling still slammed his hands into the ground and screamed at Panik. Carlos Zambrano gave up a ground ball to Juan Pierre to lead off the bottom of the first inning against the White Sox. Derek Lee at first base couldn't quite get his glove on the bouncing ball, allowing Pierre to reach. Then he proceeded to freak out in the dugout with his anger aimed squarely at Lee, who was obviously somewhat peeved at the whole situation.
I want to start today with something that might feel a little uncomfortable. We live in a world that demands we pick a side before we've even heard the story. We love our villains pure and our heroes spotless. But reality refuses to be that tidy. This is our 11th episode. On episode 12, scheduled for next week with the help of two of my former teammates who went on to play professional baseball. We're going to look at baseball in Central Park and Brooklyn in the 1980s. We're also going to talk about the exoneration of the Central Park Five and how it didn't come from a politician's speech, but believe it or not, a criminal with a code of ethics. If you look at that through a binary lens, you're stuck. You miss the message because you've discarded the messenger. And that's the same trap I want to address in today's episode. We often fall and make this mistake on the baseball field. So most parents think baseball etiquette is about respect, run hard, pay attention, be a good teammate. But etiquette isn't about respect. It's more about awareness. It's about what you're willing to tolerate in your kid, what you're willing to tolerate in a coach, and if we're being honest, what you're willing to tolerate in yourself. Because the question I get all the time is, should I coach my kid? Should another parent with a kid on the team coach my kid? Or should we pool money together and hire a professional coach? And I get it. It feels like a big decision. But there's a truth that doesn't get talked about enough, I think. Those choices are all false binaries because whether you or another parent on the team coach your kid, or you hand him over to a so-called professional, the blind spots don't disappear. They just change shape. So today, I'm going to walk you through something that most people overlook. Baseball etiquette. So running on and off the field, how the dugout functions, body language, attention between pitches, picking each other up. And we're going to tie it all in back to one question. What discomfort are you willing to face?
Hi, how you doing? It's me, Domingo Ayala. You know, I speak a lot of language, but the one I speak the most good is body language. You ever play with a guy who just have a bad body language all the time? Like he gave up a run or something like that, and he walking around the mound looking like this? Sometimes you can tell what's going on in the game just by the body language. Come on. Oh man, he's not having a good day. You can tell just by how he's walking around. Not looking good. Then Mr. Coach asks if you're okay. Hey, let's go, you okay? Yeah, Mr. Coach, I'm fine. Give me the ball. You not okay? You cry like a baby out there. With your body, it's no matter what's coming out of your mouth. Your body telling you that you're not okay. And the umpire can read it too. You think they don't notice when you take a strike and look like this? Sometimes they can't read a pitch, but they can definitely read your body language. It no matter what come out of your mouth, if you have bad body language. Mr. Coach asks if you're ready to play, and you answer like this. Yes, Coach, I'm ready to play. If you want to be a good ball player, you can't have a bad body language. The sign of a good ball player is how they react to the bad time. Except for me, it's more like how I react to the less good time. You know what I'm saying? Because even my bad time is pretty good still. The good ball player with good body language, he go 4 for 4, he looking like this. The same player go 0 for 4 and he look like this. But the bad ball player with the bad body language, he looking like this. And just so you know, everyone in the park can see it too. It's not a secret. Hey, what you play, semi-pro? So if you think you look good, do it like this. There's only one spot for you, my friend, and that's a Sunday league.
Let's start simple. Running on and off the field. Not walking, not strolling, not getting there. Running. And most people hear that and think, yeah, hustle. But that's surface level thinking. This has nothing to do with hustle. This has everything to do with time ownership. Every time your team walks off the field, you're losing 20 to 55 seconds. Multiply that over a game, over a season. You're losing reps. You're losing focus. You're building a habit of drifting. Now, here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. If you or another parent coach your kid, you might tolerate the walking. Why? Because you don't want to bark at your kid in front of other parents. You don't want to create tension on the ride home. You don't want to feel like the hard parent, so you let it slide. But by letting it slide, what you're really saying is, we're willing to trade development for comfort. Now flip it. You hire a so-called professional coach who assume this stuff is handled. But some coaches won't touch it because enforcing standards creates friction. Friction creates complaints. Complaints lose players. Less players means less money. So now you've outsourced the standard, but never verified it, and your kid is still walking. Let's go deeper. The dugout. Gloves everywhere, bats scattered, helmets rolling around. And parents look at that and say, they're just kids. No, they're forming habits because the dugout is not a waiting room. The dugout is part of the game. When gloves and balls are organized, everything speeds up. Pitchers get the ball faster. Infield get reps faster. The team stays mentally engaged. Teammates can easily find each other's equipment and pick each other up on the field like professional baseball players. Now let's tie this back. If you're a parent coach, you might tolerate chaos because organizing takes energy. It takes repetition. It takes constant reminder. And eventually you get tired of saying the same thing. So you let it go. And what you're really saying by letting it go is, I'm okay with inefficiency because structure is exhausting. Now the professional coach. Some of them run great drills, great reps, high energy, but the dugout, unchecked because it's not as visible as batting practice. It's not as measurable as velocity. So it gets ignored. And what you're left with is a team that can perform drills, but they can't manage the space between them.
If you're a youth baseball coach, I know that the dugout is a place where anything can happen. On a good day, it's a place where your entire team can be up on the fence next to each other, cheering their hearts out for their teammates on the field. But on a not so good day, it's a place that can be full of distractions and off-task behavior. Lucky for us coaches, there's something that we can do about those not so good days. I've been around baseball for a long time, and I can tell you that there's only two types of dugouts. There's a controlled dugout and an uncontrolled dugout. A controlled dugout is a dugout with discipline, where every player is always engaged in the game no matter what the situation is. Their team could be losing by 10 runs, and the dugout still has every player up on the fence cheering for their team. You don't see anyone on their phones, no one is sitting down having side conversations for the whole half inning, and you certainly don't see players leave the dugout unless they're going to the bathroom. Another thing that you don't see in a dugout with discipline is parents. Now I know this point might get a little backlash, but it's true. Parents can be a huge distraction for youth players. In an uncontrolled dugout with a lack of discipline, the first thing you'll see is the whole team looking lazy with everyone sitting on the bench. Their version of cheering for their team is taking a moment to pull away from a side conversation or look up from their phone and say a random, "Let's go, Steven," or "Nice try, Luke," and then it's right back to what they were doing. There's a complete lack of focus on the game. You'll see parents coming up to the dugout to have full conversations with their player during the game that have nothing to do with the game. Or even worse, the parent will go inside the dugout to talk to their player. This type of dugout is just a recipe for consistent frustration for the coach and losses for the team. As a coach, the most important thing that you can do for your team to ensure your team's chance of success is to have a clear set of dugout rules. They can be whatever you want them to be. If you only want there to be one rule and then rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1, then that works for you. If you want to write out a list of about 7 to 10 rules and then keep them posted in the dugout for every game, then that works for you. Having a set of rules for the dugout will make sure that your team knows that the dugout is not a place to slack off or lose focus. It's a place for you to cheer for your team, stay engaged in the game, and rest a bit while you have the chance. Having dugout rules will shift your team's mindset from a let's take a break and lose focus mindset to a let's do what we need to do to stay engaged, winning mindset. The second thing we'll discuss today is my example rules for the dugout. When I coached, I had a set of 5 rules for my team every season, and they never changed. And I created them after I crafted my coaching philosophy. They were rules that I believed would keep my team focused and engaged in the game, while also bringing my team closer together with everyone having a team mindset instead of a me mindset. My number 1 rule, have a team mindset and not a me mindset. Ask yourself, how can I help my team right now? This rule is the most important rule in my eyes. A team cannot be successful if it's full of individual me mindsets. It's called a team for a reason. You all are one unit working together to accomplish one goal, and that's to win games and have fun. This rule was always first and foremost with my team, and my whole entire team understood. Rule number 2, no phones in the dugout. This rule to me is a no-brainer, and I think it's a little concerning that I even had to make it a rule on my list. But you'd be surprised at how many players can't stay off their phones during a whole baseball game. Phones are not meant to be used during baseball, games, or practices. This was a strict rule for me, and my players knew the consequences if I ever saw a phone in the dugout. Rule number 3, no parents in the dugout. This is a rule that I always discussed with my parents during the preseason parent meeting. They were all aware of the rule before the season started, and luckily they were all for it. Obviously, if there was something really important to tell their player, they could talk to them. This rule was mainly trying to avoid parents hanging around or in the dugout and distracting the players. They needed to focus on the game, not on the pool party that was happening after. Rule number 4, every player must be standing on the fence and cheering for their team when we're hitting. And if you're sitting, you're the loudest person cheering. If you're a player on my team, then you cheer for your team, no matter what. That's how team camaraderie is built, and that's how players show support for each other. I understand that there are situations where players may have to sit on the bench, whether it be from injury or taking a quick rest or whatever, but the one thing that should never take a rest on the field is your voice and your cheering. Rule number 5, pick up every player that walks back into the dugout from the field and say something positive. No matter what a player did on the field, they're still your teammate. You need to pick them up every time that they come into the dugout from the field. They could have just grounded into an inning-ending double play or hit a grand slam home run. No matter what, you need to pick them up when they walk back into the dugout and say something positive. This rule was a huge component in changing my team's mindset from just an overall pessimistic, we can never win mindset to an optimistic mindset of, it's okay, we'll get them next time.
Now, I'm going to get into something most people avoid: emotional etiquette. Your kid makes an error, boots a ground ball, drops a fly ball. What happens next? Does anyone go up to him? Do they say something? Do they tap him or her on the back? Or does everyone just look away? This is where teams fall apart. Not on the error, on the isolation that follows. So let's bring it back. If you coach your kid, you might avoid correcting his or her body language. Why? Because you don't want to embarrass him. You don't want to embarrass her. You don't want to call him or her out in front of teammates. So you stay quiet. But your silence becomes permission. Now, the professional coach, some won't address it either because it's harder to coach energy than mechanics. It's easier to fix a swing than to fix how a kid responds to failure. So it gets ignored. And now you've got a team full of kids who don't know how to support each other. Let me say something clearly. The game is played between pitches, not when the ball is hit, between pitches. Ask yourself, where's the runner? How many outs? Where do I go if the ball is hit to me? And you watch youth baseball and you'll see kids drifting, looking around, kicking dirt, late reactions. Now here's the connection. If you're a parent, you get tired of repeating yourself. And by parent, I mean parent coach. Pay attention. Be ready. Lock in. You say it over and over until you don't, because it feels redundant. But repetition is the job, not the professional coach. Some assume this should already exist, so they skip teaching it. They focus on skills and assume awareness will follow automatically. It doesn't. Awareness is trained, just like a swing. In my 30 years of coaching, I've learned that baseball is won in the margins of the now. When I make focusing on the small details the theme of practice or a game, I'm talking about the discipline of the present moment. If a fielder is caught flat-footed, they aren't just lazy, they've left the present. Staying locked in means every player on the field is synchronized with the pitcher's release through active prep steps. That split-second hop isn't just physical, it's a mental bridge to the next play. At the plate, I teach my hitters to shed the noise of batting average and focus on the only two realities that exist: hitting with less than 2 strikes or 2-strike count. Simplicity breeds execution. Meanwhile, the bench isn't a place to rest. It's a laboratory. By paying attention to every pitch, my players decode the pitcher's patterns and tendencies long before they step into the box. We don't play for the outcome. We play for the pitch in front of us. If you own the moment, you own the game. Anticipation is where the game changes. Good players react. Great players arrive early. Before the pitch is thrown, you ask yourself, what's the situation? Where am I going? What's likely to happen? If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify in your car, pull over and both you and your kid do this visualization exercise with your eyes closed. in the great forest were two types of watchers, the stone gazers and the wind readers. The stone gazers sat at the edge of the clearing, waiting for the fruits to fall. They were indifferent to the swaying branches, believing that until the fruit hit the ground, there was nothing to do. When a peach finally dropped, they scrambled wildly, tripping over roots and lunging with panicked hands. Often they were too late, or the fruit bruised against the floor, because they only moved once the event already had happened. Their world was one of constant frantic reaction. The wind readers, however, understood the prep step of the forest. Long before the fruit loosened, they watched the clouds and felt tensions in the stems. They performed their mental choreography. If the wind gusts from the north, the apple will drift left. And if it falls now, I must dive to clear the bramble. By the time the pitcher, the great oak, released its pride, the wind readers were ready in flight. They didn't just chase the fruit, they met it. Because they stayed in the present moment, they saw the patterns in the swaying leaves that the gazers missed. They were proactive, already moving towards the destination before the rest of the forest even heard the snap of the branch. To be a proactive baseball player is to stop gazing at stones. You have to read the wind, anticipate the fall, and move before the world demands it. Now, here's another uncomfortable truth. Parents think anticipation is instinct. It's not. It's trained awareness. If you coach your kid, you might rely on reminders during the game. Be ready. Think. But you haven't built the habit before the pitch. Now, the professional coach, they might teach the system, cutoffs, rotations, responsibilities, but they don't always ensure that each kid internalizes it. So the system exists, but the player doesn't. Baseball is a game of failure, and most kids don't struggle with failure. They struggle with carrying it. Strikeout on the field, into the field, still thinking about it. Error, next play, still stuck. So let's simplify it. Reset. Step out. Take a breath. Say something constructive to yourself. Next pitch. That's a skill. Now tie it back. If you coach your kid, your reaction becomes their inner voice. If you tense up, they feel it. If you carry it, they carry it. Now, the professional coach. Some will say short memory, but they don't teach how. And without a process, it's just talk. It's just a phrase. So let's bring this full circle. Coaching your kid or hiring a professional is not the real decision. The real decision is, what discomfort are you willing to face? If you coach a kid, you have to face your ego, your patience, your need to be liked. If you hire a coach, you have to face your lack of control, your assumptions, your passivity. So either way, the blind spots don't go away. They just shift. An etiquette, running on and off the field, picking each other up, being ready every pitch, that's not about discipline. That's about awareness. And awareness only grows when you stop avoiding the discomfort that's been sitting right in front of you the whole time.
Before we wrap up episode 11, I want to take a second to thank you all for being part of this journey. You'll notice we don't have sponsors or a paywall here at the Developmental Gap podcast or over at stoopjuice.com. That's intentional. Staying away from a subscription model allows us to keep this message authentic. We don't have to pander to anyone or dilute the truth to keep a member happy. We do this for the game and for the kids, period. Looking ahead to episode 12, I am incredibly excited to welcome a brother of mine, Ernest Castro, though many of you know him as Ernesto. Ernest and I go way back to our days as teammates at the Youth Service League right here in New York. A true product of NYC ball, Ernesto now resides in Milwaukee, but his roots are deep in the 1980s New York scene. We're going to dive into his personal journey, his professional career, and his extensive coaching experience. He's still in the trenches doing lessons and coaching today. So we'll compare the then and now, what's changed in high school and travel ball since we were on the dirt, and what remains timeless. You won't want to miss this look through the bridges through shadow. See you next time.